Yes, listener. So nice to have you with us again. What's it? Thursday the 14th of May today? Good Lord. I'm joined by Julien Laurens.
You said Thursday.
What?
Tuesday. You said
It's very much Tuesday. They're different, right?
That medication is strong.
And ibuprofen. Really.
Yeah.
Just kicking in about now.
Those Nurofen caps.
Leave it now that you can.
Also here, Alvaro Romeo.
Buenos días.
Buenos. Sí. ¿Qué tal?
Muy bien, gracias. ¿Tú?
Okay, good. And also James Horncastle.
Hey up.
Nice. And on the big screen from sunny Hamburg, scene of so much excitement and drama and partying this weekend. Yes, it's Seb Stafford-Bloor. Hey, Seb.
Guten Morgen, Jimbo.
Seb, you were there to see St Pauli come up. Are you all talked out about it?
Not yet. I've still got a good hour left, but
Okay.
I do have the sunburn to prove that I was there. It was an amazing day.
Oh, no, I was leaping in. You know what, because I was going to talk about them with James's promotion story, which is Como.
Yes, very much mine. I am the inspiration behind
There you go.
I manifested it myself.
Slightly different model, though.
Well, there are many similarities. But we'll talk about them later on. But it was nice that you got out, got in the sun and joined in the fun and games. There was big drama all over the place. Real Madrid doing their celebrations. Mbappe heading out with a whimper at the Parc des Princes.
All right.
Nice choreography though. Nice send-off.
Nice
Jules?
send-off.
No?
Nice choreography, not really nice send-off. You know.
Well, they gave him the traditional booing, no? Just like Messi.
Booing
and
before the
Neymar.
game and clapping after the game, but Luis Enrique played a C team
Oh, did he?
to make the game bad.
Right.
He lost. The club didn't want to do anything for him, any tribute, no ceremony, no
Right.
celebration, because he didn't thank the president in his own video to announce he was
Which
leaving.
the club didn't know about, yeah? They did.
No, but
not
7
retiring.
years is maybe your greatest ever player. You know, you should have done something, I think.
Alvaro, what was your moment of the
I'm
weekend?
going to keep on improving the good moments.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, another promotion, but one that maybe you're not aware about.
Is it Deportivo La Coruña?
Exactamente.
Oof.
I wasn't familiar about this term and about this phrase until Sunday when I heard repeatedly Lucas Pérez, the best player of Deportivo de La Coruña, former Arsenal footballer, saying this many times during a post-game interview. 1 de 9. You all are polyglot, so you understand it's 1 of 9. Deportivo de La Coruña is one of the 9 clubs who have won La Liga. In La Liga history, only 9 has won it. And that was the motto, that was the catchphrase for this season. 1 de 9, we have to be back in professional football.
Okay. And they have been promoted, but only to the second division, because that's
Yes.
how far they had fallen.
They were out of professional football, and they are back. They are back with the win against Barcelona B.
And the fact that he scored the goal that took them up is pretty remarkable, given his relationship with the club.
Well, everything about it, because Lucas Pérez paid $500,000 to be back at Deportivo de La Coruña.
He paid to buy
He
himself out.
bought himself out, basically. He was making around $1 million at the time when he was playing for Cádiz. He's nowhere near those wages anymore, playing for Deportivo de La Coruña. He didn't play every game this season, but he scored important goals.
Right.
And,
Do you think if we did a GoFundMe, they'd let us 5
Buy
play?
ourselves out of our
Yeah.
contract.
That would be amazing.
Great.
I mean, there are people to buy.
Yeah.
That'd be...
And yeah, it was a terrific story, really. At the end of the day, the attendances at Riazor had been really high this season. There was a lovely tifo before the game with Bebeto and Arsenio Iglesias, 2 club legends. One of them is no longer amongst us. Arsenio Iglesias passed away. But yeah, it was the story of the week in Spain, definitely. Deportivo de La Coruña is back in professional football.
Very nice. James, what about you?
I think the celebrations on Sunday night outside of Bologna's training ground, Casteldebole, you had the captain Lorenzo de Silvestri bringing out a boombox playing the Champions League music. And then one of the great pieces of sort of gonzo journalism where you had like this kind of DAZN sideline reporter being outside, being pulled into Riccardo Orsolini's car, and Orsolini then driving them into Bologna city centre, doing this entire sort of 15-minute live broadcast as they went past people on their bicycles, sort of hooting horns, and then into Piazza Maggiore, where there was incredible scenes. Bologna back in Europe's top-tier competition for the first time in 60 years. And also really nice to hear chants for Sinisa Mihajlovic in Piazza Maggiore. And a lot of the players crediting Mihajlovic with setting the tone in terms of the mentality and the mindset. I know that Thiago Motta's got a lot of credit, and rightly so, for a team that is now third in the league. But Mihajlovic was someone who meant a hell of a lot, not just to his players, but also to the city towards the end of his life. And yeah, just remarkable really to see these kind of stories still happening in European football, when we've kind of all become not indifferent, but feeling that the top four is more or less always the same in most leagues. So to see a new team like Bologna qualifying for the expanded Champions League and not doing it through the back door either by finishing fifth, but could finish third. Sensational, James.
It certainly is. Jules, what about you?
Because we will talk about Mbappe later, my moment of the weekend will have to be Monaco, who qualified for the Champions League for the first time in 6 years. 6 years since we've had them on the goal show. So well done to Adi Hatter. They turned to finish second as well. And to be fair, I think they've been the second best team in the league behind PSG. They've played great at times, not always with the right efficiency. So they've conceded late goals. They've had some disappointing results, but they've always tried to attack. And Adi Hatter was a little bit under pressure in the turn of the year. But to be fair to him, he kind of rode that waves well and then stayed in place, and then took this team where really they should have finished second in the Champions League. They will lose some key players in the summer like they always do, but at least they've got something really good going on.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing them on the Goals Show next season.
Indeed.
Seb, what about you?
Well, Jimbo, producer Charlie has promised me time to bore on about St Pauli later. So I'm going to pick Holstein Kiel, getting promoted to the Bundesliga for the first time in their history. Led by an ageing Lewis Holtby in central midfield, kind of talismanic figure. They've kind of tailed off towards the end of the season, but they did enough work in the first sort of 3 quarters to be in an advantageous position to hold off Fortuna Düsseldorf, who they played on Saturday night, took a 1-0 lead, got pegged back to 1-1 and held on. And then it's a very, very small club, tiny ground, only holds 15,000 people. And big pitch invasion. Interesting fact, so their state is the last one to be represented in the Bundesliga. All the others have had a Bundesliga team until now. So good news for North Germany.
So that's where Holstein is it?
Yes, indeed. So it's like a lot of people think that Germany isn't quite as northern as it really is. So beyond Hamburg, you actually have a little corridor that goes up towards Denmark and Scandinavia.
Okay.
Heading up to Scandinavia, and lots of very, very nice canal bridge up in Kiel. And very, very fine football team now. And
excellent.
And handball.
Yeah, Marcel Rapp is probably one of the kind of the up and coming managers. So if he manages to keep Kiel in the Bundesliga next season, which would be a triumph against the odds.
Kiel, yeah.
If they would keep him on an even keel, then he would be destined for very bright things in his future.
Oh, right.
The keel over.
Aha, there we are. So nice. Very good. Excellent. Well, that's our moment of the week, but loads more to discuss as we get into the various topics. Hey, next up, should we get a quick reaction to last week's sorting out of the various European semi-finals and the Cup finalists? All right, your Cup lineup, 1st of June. Champions League will be Real Madrid against Dortmund. Before that, on the 29th, you got the Conference League final in Athens. That's Fiorentina against Olympiacos. Ooh. And before that even, next Wednesday, the 22nd of May, Bayer Leverkusen, of course, taking on Atalanta. Jules, sorry not to see PSG in there.
Yeah, to be fair. Very disappointing in the end.
Yeah.
Not that Dortmund didn't deserve to go through. I thought they played with a lot of heart. We said that after the first leg. And in Paris too, they scored a goal that was gifted to them, to be fair. But even despite or with that, they defended well. They rode their luck a little bit, like you have to in that kind of position, especially where I think you're an inferior team to your opposition. Because PSG were the better team, they just never really made it count. From Mbappe to Dembele to, Zaire Emery or others, they were just not good enough over the 2 legs, over the 90 minutes, because their second halves were much better than the first half to start with. Overall, I don't know if they took that second leg for granted, maybe a little bit. Everybody was so confident at the ground when I arrived. Everybody we talked to from the clubs, from the players' side, from the journalists, the media, everybody was just like, yes, they will do it. And maybe they were a little bit too confident and maybe a little bit too arrogant, which is not surprising, obviously.
I wonder if Real Madrid are going to be quite confident and quite arrogant, perhaps, going into that final, because not many people give Dortmund a chance there.
Is it the most one-sided final since last year in the narrative pre-game?
I don't know.
But last year was, some people made it one-sided, but it wasn't. What we all knew.
It was close. People knew, but at the same time, the entire media narrative before that, at least in the UK, was this is the most one-sided final. Can you remember the last time it was this one-sided?
But not seriously. When has it been the last time that we've seen two finalists of the Champions League with such a big gap between? Are we going back to the Dortmund win in '97? Maybe the Liverpool-Milan one of 2005. Even I don't think the gap was that big in between them two.
Right.
So we'll have to look, but
okay.
But it's going to be very interesting.
I think it will. The other finals look pretty interesting too. Can Atalanta stop Bayer Leverkusen? They've got Bayer now on 50 games unbeaten after their 5-0 against Bochum this weekend, and then they've got another game next week. They have a final game of the season of the Bundesliga next weekend before the Atalanta game, and then after that Kaiserslautern. James, what do you think? Could Atalanta be the team?
I mean, I watched them play against the same opponent that Leverkusen played on Sunday, and Leverkusen were very impressive on Thursday night. Should have scored more. Villar had
12 saves, isn't it? Wasn't it 12?
12 saves. Yeah. I mean, some were fortunate. The ball coming back off the post and hitting him in the back. But Atalanta was so impressive the first half against Roma. Unbelievable kind of high level in which they played. And De Rossi was saying, look, they basically go twice as fast as we do. And, on the one hand, you could say, okay, that's because Roma have had to recover some games, go back to Udine, play 18 minutes, been playing every 3 days. But Atalanta have been playing every 3 days since February because, they're not only going to be in the Europa League final, they play the Coppa Italia final on Wednesday. So they've gone all the way in 3 competitions. I think they can do it. I mean, the strange thing with Leverkusen is I've rarely seen a team be as dominant as they were in long stretches of both games against Roma, and yet also concede the kind of chances where you think Roma could have scored 4 goals maybe over 2 legs. Leverkusen could have scored 9. I think what's really interesting about this final, from a geographic point of view, is this is the final with the 2 smallest populaces ever to compete in a European final. Yeah.
I remember Villarreal playing it, but they played against Manchester United.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But Leverkusen and Bergamo, tiny.
Tiny,
relatively speaking, in the grand metropolises of European football. So
this is the best final by far.
Do you think so?
There's one to watch among the 3. That's the one.
Next Wednesday, 22nd of May. I'm looking forward to Fiorentina Olympiacos, which is going to be mad and bonkers and going to be held in Athens, just down the road from Olympiacos. And they're playing in their first ever European final. And they're up against Fiorentina, who got beaten in the final last season by West Ham. There's so much excitement in that. Woof. Yeah, because for all Atalanta's excellent form, Bayer Leverkusen don't show any signs of slowing down. If anything, Seb, picking up speed.
Yeah, they got a little bit fortunate against Bochum on the weekend, Jimbo, just because Bochum got a very early red card and it allowed Leverkusen to kind of cruise through the game in third gear, still being excellent and scoring 5 times. But this has kind of become normal with them. And one of the reasons I think I favour Leverkusen is because if you look at the way the chips have fallen during their season, they got the Bundesliga title won early. They're into the Pokal final against Kaiserslautern, who are a wonderful story in their own right, getting to the final, but are still fundamentally a struggling Zweite Bundesliga team. So Leverkusen assumed to win that quite easily. And so throughout this sort of little period, this post-title winning period, they've been able to kind of rotate players. Florian Wirtz has spent a bit of time on the bench. Victor Boniface is back and has shared some minutes with Patrick Schick. Jonas Hoffmann has been kind of allowed to sit out a few halves. So they're able to kind of compete on all these fronts at the same time whilst remaining quite fresh. And it's kind of, married with Xabi Alonso's uncanny ability to keep feet on the ground and to sort of to keep everyone focused on maintaining the unbeaten record, which is kind of a remarkable triumph in itself. You've won the league, you've achieved some history, and yet the tenor of performance hasn't dropped. I'm not really smart enough to explain that, but it's kind of remarkable.
Certainly is. All right, well, that's coming up next Wednesday, the game with Atalanta after their match-up with Augsburg in the Bundesliga finale next weekend, which might well be their 51st game unbeaten. We'll see. And then, of course, is the really exciting Olympiacos-Fiorentina clash. That's a Conference League one. That's the 29th, which is just going to be mad because it's in Athens and Olympiacos are from down the road, and they're in the first ever European final, and they take on Fiorentina. James, Fiorentina back in the final, just like last year. Will it go any better for them?
They were unlucky last year.
Yeah.
Because, I thought West Ham, I was there in Prague, West Ham were quiet in the first half in particular. The only thing that they did of any note was throw a lighter and hit, it was a vape, and hit Cristiano Biraghi, the Fiorentina captain, on the head. And, they win in stoppage time because of a sort of mistake by Igor, who then moved to Brighton. Italiano, the coach there, is an incredible cup manager. This is the third final that he's reached in 3 years. Got to the Coppa Italia final last year, back-to-back Conference League finals. And, you think of some of the players that they lost. Amrabat, who was extremely good for them.
Key player.
Yeah, key player for them. And also, their top scorer in the Conference League last year, Cabral, who went to Benfica, Jovic, who went to AC Milan. Jovic didn't have a really good season, but he did score quite a few goals in the Conference League last year.
And now they got Artur Melo scoring goals. So
yeah, Melo Yellow. And that's the other thing I would say is a feather in Mr. Italiano's cap, is that he's finally got performances out of Artur in a way that Juventus couldn't and a way that Liverpool couldn't.
Barcelona couldn't.
Got him fit. So he's good.
Where's Italiano going to be next year? Because the final presumably is going to be his last game with the club.
Presumably, he's been quite coy on that. There's been some talk that he would move to Bologna over the Apennines in the likely event that Thiago Motta leaves for Juventus. And you would say that's ordinarily quite a sideways move, and yet Bologna will be a Champions League team next year. And so he'll get the chance to play in a competition that he's yet to compete in. So, I'm sure he will have a fair few jobs. The one thing that surprises me is that Milan have not been linked with Italiano when in every season in which he's been a coach, he's punched above his weight, be it, getting a team in the third division into the playoffs, getting a team in the second division up as well, keeping Spezia in the league, and then getting Fiorentina into Europe in 5 years and into back-to-back Conference League finals for the first time since the early 1960s. The guy has done something every year. Why
do you think Fiorentina are so keen to be rid of him then?
They're not. I think it's a case that he's had 3 years there, and he's like, I've reached 3 finals, and every year he's had sort of Napoli knock at his door and say, oh, by the way, do you want to come and coach here? Like after Spalletti, for example, last year. So I think he knows his own worth. The only strange thing when you look at that is, okay, you think Bologna, okay, they are in the Champions League. You think that's the next step, is it? I think he's probably done enough or as much as Simone Inzaghi did at Lazio to think that he could be a coach for one of the big three in Italy. So we have to see how that shakes out.
Indeed so. All right. Next up, let's talk about Real Madrid and all things Liga. Alvaro, Real Madrid, big cup final coming up for them. And while their future opponents, Borussia Dortmund, this weekend, were slipping to a 3-0 defeat at Mainz, Real Madrid were keeping the pressure on a 4-0 victory for them over the already relegated Granada. 28 games now unbeaten for Los Merengues.
It's pretty incredible. The last game they lost was against I guess that Atletico de Madrid in the Super Cup, but in the Spanish Cup, but that didn't happen over 90 minutes. You have to go to September to find Real Madrid losing 90 minutes. That was against Atletico again. But ever since, they've been the best team in Spain by far, and probably in Europe. 90 points, Champions League finalist, 1 defeat this season, and 22 goals conceded in the league. Those are the numbers of a champion. And many players scoring many goals as well, because we saw Arda Güler and Brahim Diaz playing against Granada the other day, and both managed to score. Arda Güler scoring 1 more goal, a player who has barely played this season, and Brahim Diaz resembling sometimes, and this is obviously a gap that he will never cover, right? But he resembles of Messi. In the way he scores some goals, not all the goals. It's the style sometimes. If you think of Brahim Diaz, you think of a player who is taking the ball in midfield and running towards the opponent's box, and he manages to do something. He scored like that against RB Leipzig. He did score against Granada like that with a beautiful turn, then a nice feint, beautiful goal again. So, they are the best team, and I think that they have shown as well how important it is to be financially strong, because as soon as Barcelona lost 2 or 3 players plus his manager or their manager lost it, Barcelona was a very anti-competitive side. Real Madrid, no matter how many injuries they have so much money, and deservedly, because they've been run very well, that they've got a terrific squad with footballers like Joselu, Brahim, Modric, Güler, Nacho, Lucas Vázquez, Lunin. All of those weren't particularly important at the beginning of the season, but they have played, they make good money, they are good players, they could be expensive in the market, and they make a difference in the long run.
When you look at the Dortmund game, is there anything that stands out to you as a potential worry for Real Madrid? Well,
a few things. I think that when Dortmund has 5 or 10 minutes spells, they create easily 3-4 chances out of nothing. I think that Fulkrug, his aerial power can be dangerous as well, and Rudiger will have to mark him very well. Then Real Madrid can inflict themselves some doubts, let's put it this way, if Carlo Ancelotti decides to use Thibaut Courtois for that final, and Thibaut Courtois is not fully ready yet. He played in the weekend, but maybe that option of playing Thibaut Courtois is not the best possible thing for Carlo Ancelotti, because we know that Courtois was 2 years ago the best goalkeeper in the world, but perhaps right now in the final he won't be 100% ready for it, and yet he's very likely to play it. So these things may weaken Real Madrid in a way.
Why would you play him when?
I'm not sure.
Me neither, but there is a chance that he plays, because Carlo Ancelotti is definitely not going to use Kepa from now until the end of the season. Thibaut Courtois is going to play, I think, 2-3 more games, and if he proves that he's at a decent level, he's likely to play. The thing is that he's not getting many shots against either. So, in the Champions League final, it can be different, because maybe Dortmund, as I said before, they have 4, 5, 6 chances.
Okay. Kepa will be hung out to dry by Ancelotti. The title celebrations the day after the Granada win.
Yeah.
Carlo in great form again.
He said, I've got a dream. I want to dance with Camavinga.
Yeah.
Things like this. Yeah, he's a legend, really. And they gave him the sunglasses and the cigar, as well as they did in 2022.
Final, yeah.
And 2 years ago, he said that he wasn't only coaching a football team, he was coaching a group of friends. And I think that 2 years later, those players still remain.
Oh, he's the coolest guy, isn't he?
He's the best.
He's really
the best. He is the best.
And he's got, this finesse. He's got class. He's comfortable in every possible situation, because you could tell, for example, maybe this guy is not comfortable in front of 10,000, 20,000 people, just speaking in a festive mood, with youngsters, because some players are 45 years younger than he is. And still, he runs the show there as well. So he pulls the strings everywhere. He was fantastic the other day.
What a mensch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Anyway, hey, quick word on Dortmund. Seb, if you wanted a week to kind of illustrate the dichotomy of their season, how about that? Qualifying for the Champions League final, then, losing to the 4th worst team in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, a little bit deceptive, because Mainz are really growing under by Henriksen. They've kind of been infused with this energy and spirit and belief, which, if you go back as recently as maybe 2 months, they just didn't have. They were kind of a write-off. And yet, absolutely monstered Dortmund in the first 30 minutes. I think at the end of the first half, they'd run 5 kilometres as a team further than Dortmund. And a Dortmund team who had made 11 changes, and it was clear lineup designed to give a few players a chance to say, hey, maybe I should be starting at Wembley, maybe I'm worth a go. Don't think many of those players will be making it. A few very telling substitutes at half-time. Donny Marlin was taken off, Jadon Sancho came on, but they were nowhere near it. And Edin Terzic spoke afterwards. He said, this is a side of our personality that we've shown far too often, that we've been too easy to play against, that we've been, he didn't use this word, but he insinuated a bit soft, which is pretty damning, and about as accusatory as Edin Terzic gets in public about his players. Incredibly disappointing. I think Mainz are a bit of a story, so I think it's fair to kind of point at them. And also, since Dortmund the Bundesliga won the
5th spot.
Yeah, well, it's kind of taken the wind out of their sails, because previously there was a little bit of a dynamic between them and Leipzig, and there's a little bit of a kind of a rivalry for that 4th spot. But because Eintracht are so far behind in 6th, it kind of left them with nothing to play for. So it's forgivable, even if it's not terribly impressive.
Okay, fair enough. We'll hear more about Mainz perhaps later on. But the other team in Madrid, meanwhile, Atletico Madrid, they've pretty much sewn up their Champions League place now, Alvaro. A hefty 8-point margin between them and your boys Athletic Club de Bilbao.
Yeah, I don't think that Atletico is going to qualify for the Champions League again. They've been in every Champions League edition since 2013. Ooh. And this is what, in reality, Simeone gets paid for, really.
Right.
Yes, because that adjusts the finances of Atletico de Madrid.
Fair enough. What a goal, though, to seal the win against Celta Vigo. What a goal.
Wow, from Rodrigo de Paul. Lovely. Just volleying the ball, chesting it first. Then the volley to the top of the net. Beautiful. From Rodrigo de Paul, a player who is sometimes a little bit inaccurate when it comes to his passing, especially in key positions, as we saw against Inter Milan, for example. But at the same time, he's been always there. And he's always available for Simeone. He barely gets an injury. He's got a good engine. And a good win for Atletico de Madrid. Simeone, by the way, became, with this win in the weekend, the manager with more points in La Liga history as a coach, 976. 3 points more than Luis Aragonés.
Okay.
That was his 400 win.
400.
400.
How long has he been there?
He arrived in Atletico in December 2011, I would say. And Atletico was in a very bad position at the time. I think that his legacy is there. We know about that. But Atletico has a difficult summer ahead of them, I believe, or a difficult couple of summers, because I was checking their squad the other day. 10 players are over 30, and 5 players are 29 years old. So a renovation must come up at some point. And Atletico doesn't have the financial power to probably get a squad as good as they've got now with youngsters. Just basically cashing out for the veteran players and buying youngsters of this quality. So it's a tricky time for Atletico, I would say. But if you qualify for the Champions League, obviously the grass is greener. Antoine Griezmann and Alvaro Morata, they were I would say that the best duo, definitely in Spain and probably in Europe, up till December. Easily they scored so many goals together. And since February, Antoine Griezmann has scored 3, Alvaro Morata has scored 2. This goes a little bit in line with what I'm saying about the age of a few players. Wow. The season can be too long for them. Ángel Correa, in fact, has been the top scorer of Atletico since February. So, there is a little bit of food for thought for Simeone over there.
Very nice. We're heading
Sell Morata, sell Griezmann.
Yeah. That would be a disaster.
They're too old. They are too old.
That would be a disaster. Selling Griezmann especially would be a disaster. But when Atletico started playing 1 game a week, they have improved a lot domestically. That's the whole point.
I see. Yeah. Anything else from La Liga before we head to La Ligue?
Just Barcelona is second.
La Ligue?
Ligue 1.
Ligue 1.
You used to say Ligue 1 with the 1, now you drop the 1.
Before we head to France?
Yeah, very quickly. Barcelona won 2-0 and Isco, who's having a terrific season, he scored the goal, he provided 2 assists in the game against Almeria, said that he's having his honeymoon this summer, but he got a cancellation insurance just in case he gets called for the Euros. He hasn't been called for Spain for a long time, but you know.
I thought that was a lack of faith in this.
No, just in case. I changed my mind.
As far as I know, he's been quite loyal to this woman. So,
Right.
but who knows? But yeah, he really hopes that Luis de la Fuente calls him. And in all fairness, he should be in that plane. He should be on that plane.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Very good. Liga 1 next.
La Liga.
We
La Liga.
Woof. Okay, so Mbappe's farewell. Oh, that didn't go too well, but 3-1 defeat at home to Toulouse, and also a little bit more on Mbappe, who was awarded Player of the Season.
That's right, on Monday night, big ceremony in Paris, receiving the trophy for the 5th time, deservedly so. As well, but what we all waited for was the speech, and
Right.
see how he would do his speech after what happened on Sunday night and the defeat against Toulouse. There were rumors that he had a fight with Nasser Al-Khelaifi before that Toulouse game, because he didn't thank him in his own video of announcing he was leaving Paris, which Al-Khelaifi and the club didn't like at all. It's not really a clash, but they had an explanation. You said that?
They
had
cleared the air
air.
there. What is it? You cleared the air.
Yeah, cleared the air, exactly. But his speech, I thought, was really nice last night. He looked really sincere.
What did he say, Jules?
He said, so he thanked the Nasser Al-Khelaifi, the president, everybody at the club. He also thanked all the players he played against in Ligue 1.
All of them.
And Ligue 1 in general for those last 7 years. He said he was so proud to have played in that league, that league will always stay with him. He knew all the players, he watched all the game in Ligue 1. It was just time now to go in another country and just get to another chapter in his life. But everything was quite emotional, and he's not really somebody, he's very, what's the words? Like clinical in what, even his body language is often very efficient, let's put it that way.
Yeah, he certainly didn't seem troubled by emotion on Sunday when he was walking off.
Exactly, which is, again, not surprising at all.
I mean, he's been preparing this for like 3 years now.
He's had the speech ready for 3 years. But yesterday, on Monday night, in that after he got the award, he looked really, really emotional, really nice, really grateful to Ligue 1, to PSG. He said, thank you for the award. He said it shows that people love you, and it's really nice to be loved. And I think there's a side of him that we don't really see much. One, because he doesn't give many interviews. When he does, it's not that emotional. And two, because he's won so much, and this is what he's here for, to win and win and win again. And I think it was good for him to reflect a bit and got those emotions out.
Okay. When he goes, sorry, I was just going to ask, who do you think, when he's not there to kind of keep the Player of the Season under lock, who do you think will get it?
It's a good question. It is a good question. You would expect PSG to still be, for once, to still be the best team. So it might be another player from PSG. But look at the manager of the season. Since Unai Emery in 2018, no PSG managers has won it again. And yesterday was your favourite Brest manager who managed Brest.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Eric Roy who won it. And again, very deservedly
Eric
so.
King.
Exactly.
It's with a Y, no?
Yeah, but still.
Luis Enrique very much not winning it because he's got the worst record at PSG in terms of win percentage since Antoine Koumbaré.
Really?
Yeah.
In the league as well?
Uh-huh.
Only 2 defeats.
Let's see, 62%.
That's
worst
right.
win percentage of any PSG manager since Antoine Koumbaré. That was in 2011, you know.
That's right, before Carlo. There's a few draws in there, but still a good season, still a positive season.
All right.
But yeah, it was nice to see Mbappe in that kind of mood.
Okay.
And now he will go to Real Madrid. We're going to wait and see when they announce it. Probably, certainly after the Champions League final. If they lose that final to Dortmund, which will be
objectively not hilarious,
but extraordinary, then they will announce it straight away because it's a way of getting over the final. If they win the final, they will wait a few days, so maybe June 4th, June 5th, and announce Kylian.
Jules, just to riff on James's question, who would be the player of the season outside of PSG this year?
So I think Youssouf Fofana, Monaco, has a good shot. Or Wissam Ben Yedder, Alvaro's favourite player ever.
The Basque Wissam Ben Yedder.
Despite all the issues of the pitch, of course. But yeah, I think probably somebody from Monaco.
Okay. Will anyone be better than Ben Yedder? That's the question. Of course, for Fofana, very much subject to transfer talk.
Yes, I think he will go in the summer.
No one from Brest?
Yeah, but it's more of a collective.
Okay.
Yeah, more than
Alvaro.
I was going to ask, what about Kylian and the Olympic Games? Because he wants to go to the Olympic Games. That clashes with Real Madrid's
So does
agenda.
Jules. Yeah.
Remember, Messi also went to the Olympics. The club didn't want him to go in 2008, but Pep Guardiola said, you know what, you can go. And he won.
It's one of those questions. The Mbappe said that they haven't been told by Real Madrid yet that he could not go, so he still hopes. President Macron can't stop talking about it. I don't know why. The other day said, I really hope Real Madrid will let him go. Please let him go. Please let him go. I can't see it happening at all. And I think Kylian is a grown-up and he knows there's things that you want and there's things that we all want and there's things that you can't have.
With Hosselu scoring these kind of goals, I mean, they don't need him.
They don't need him, do you think?
All right. Paris Red Star, Jules.
Very
on,
good season.
on the plus side, they got promotion
They did.
to Ligue 2.
To Ligue 2, so from third
La
division.
Ligue 2.
La
La
Ligue
Ligue
2.
2.
From third division, from National to Ligue 2.
On the less plus side, they turn out to be another 777 club.
That's right. And
Oh,
they quite
dear.
worried. Yeah. And the manager left, Abi Bay, the former Newcastle defender.
Oh, yeah.
A good friend of the show,
Salt Bay's brother.
Saul Bay's brother, who's also the best co-commentator in France.
Is that right?
Outstanding. I decided to leave, one, because I think he's got higher ambition than Ligue 2. He feels ready to go to Ligue 1, and I think he will find a Ligue 1 club, maybe somewhere like Reims, or to replace Will Steele, a club like that, like a good club. And also because he just didn't fancy what was going on with 777. Is there still some money? What's going to happen? Could the club be in trouble because of the issues that they have?
Right.
Which is the same at Genoa, which is the same.
Well, we saw Standard Liège. Their
I was
fans
going to say
barrack-
in Belgium, yeah.
Right. With Genoa, what are the issues there? Because they've been, I mean, they've been doing really well, no?
Well, I mean, if you overlook that they got relegated in 7-7's first season, which hadn't happened in all those years under Preziosi.
But they took over when they were already in that position, though.
I mean, the takeover happened in, October, November time?
Yeah.
They then hired Shevchenko when they didn't have a sporting director or the kind of football platform, as they would call it, that they do now. But, I mean, I suppose you see this when clubs go down to the Championship. Genoa got up, automatically promoted. The fans had a great season. Really brought back enthusiasm to the Luigi Ferraris. There'd been so much hate and vitriol towards Preziosi to the point that they see this. They don't see this as a case of it was better the devil you knew in Preziosi. I mean, last year I think they had a point deducted for a late payment on tax. Which is kind of seems to be standard across a lot of the clubs that 7-7 have. But this is just, it has not been a story in Italy, as so often big financial, complicated stories aren't in football. Serie A often has its head in its...
It's sand.
It's sand. Yeah, head in the sand on these things, James. So...
I meant more collateral damage from the 777 issue that they have in their business towards some of their football clubs.
These clubs, there's a lot of uncertainty around them. Particularly when you look at the legal issues that 7-7 have got in the US. How have these clubs been financed? How were they bought? With what money were they bought? With what money were they operating?
Are there any signs of UEFA taking any steps against multi-club ownership?
No, remember they actually started relaxing things.
Yeah.
They're like, actually, we're now kind of pro it.
You can have two clubs from the same organisation playing in the same cup together.
Yeah, Girona,
Manchester City is happening.
Yeah. Speaking of multi-club ownership, how about the Ineos South of France project Nice? Who are definitely going to be in Europe. We're not sure which competition.
No, fifth for sure. There's one game to go.
Right.
And they currently have 4 points more than Lens. And they actually have a game in hand. They play on Wednesday against PSG.
Okay.
At the
Allianz Riviera.
Allianz Riviera. Wow. At the Allianz Riviera. So well done for Farioli, because remember the great start.
Yes.
Wonderful. Even in kind of a very defensive way, but it's fine. Then really, really bad period where they just could not win. It was terrible. We thought he might get sacked. And to be fair to him, he showed a lot of character to steady the ship, get them finishing fifth, which is a good season for his first season so young. And to the point now that there's a lot of other clubs like Ajax, for example.
Yeah, I thought that looked like a done deal, him going to Ajax. It seems a slightly strange footballing fit, given the way that his niece played and the way that, the Ajax tradition, etc. and so on.
Yeah, I agree with you. Did he play like that at Nice because of the players that he had?
Fair, yeah.
Although you could argue that Jeremy Boga and Terem Moffi, they still have Kefren Turam. They have good players with the ball too. So it'd be interesting. Right now, would I swap Nice for Ajax? I'm not too sure.
Not many people would swap anywhere for Ajax.
No, that's true. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see.
But can you imagine the appeal of that? I mean, I think it still has great appeal in the imagination. You can also imagine for an Italian, the idea of coaching Ajax, given everything that everyone thinks Italian football is about, and what this new wave of Italian coaches is kind of bringing, be it with De Zerbi, who Francesco worked under, or whatever. I think it really does capture the imagination, regardless of the state of the club and all that sort of thing. And also with Nice, I think one of the reasons why they fell away is they didn't invest in January. I think they were distracted by the takeover of Manchester United in Ineos in terms of the football structure that they were putting in place there, when they could have really built on the good work that Fadioli was doing in the first 4 months of the season. And now the structure that they've got in Nice seems to be considering its future, because it's not just, I think, Fadioli, but also Ghisolfi, who has been heavily linked with Roma.
Jules is just doing a Thierry Henry and touching my niece.
Because I was going to talk about Ghisolfi in case James might have forgotten, but he didn't. He never forgets anything. He's so perfect. He makes the extraordinary ordinary.
It's a nice turn of phrase, Jules.
Yeah. Not about myself.
If you're talking about extraordinary, you can't say fairer than stone wise.
Stone wise.
Here's a stat for you. Lyon this weekend beat Clermont Foot 1-0. How do you say that?
1-0.
1-0.
In La Ligue 1.
In La Liga. They have become the first team in Ligue 1 history to be bottom of the table at the halfway stage, still finish the season in the top half. Incredible. Where would they be if the season had started when he took over?
Top. Because they won more points than anybody else, haven't they? Or just level?
Yeah, they would be.
I think so. Just a point clear or 2 points clear. It's incredible.
Are they going to win the league then next year?
Well, let's see. He will be there at least, so he will have he start from the beginning, which is good. They can still qualify directly for Europe because they level on points with Lens, who was 6th right now for the Conference League.
They're only goal difference away from Conference League qualification.
That's right, but Marseille have a game in hand and can go level. So we could have 3 teams, Lens, Lyon and Marseille, all level on 50 points with 1 game to go.
And then what would they do if it finishes that way?
Then it's goal difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, Lyon obviously have the French Cup final against PSG to play on May 25th in Lille. So they still have, in that way, a chance of winning it. And to be fair, seeing how well, they didn't play well at the weekend, they won, that was the most important. But how good they are right now, and PSG with all the Mbappe stuff, not playing that great, the Champions League, all of that, it would be a really good final. And I think Lyon have a chance. So well done to him. John Textor, we haven't always been kind to him.
Right.
But to be fair, that was the right choice for once. Eventually he got something right. And then since then, it's been really good. The recruitment was really good in January and it's paying off now. So that the next 2 games for Lyon are very exciting.
Very exciting. Excellent. Next up, let's talk about Como and St Pauli. Woo! Como and St Pauli, everybody. 2 sides with so much in common. Yes. They're both coming up.
Yeah. What else?
They've both got excellent profiles right now on theathletic.com.
Okay.
Seb did a great one about St Pauli. And James, your piece on Como was fantastic.
Always.
Yeah. But in other ways, you know what? There are big differences between these sides. Okay. One's just down the road from Bellagio, the other from the Reaper Barn. Not sure which is which. One's super loaded, but I mean unbelievably moneyed. And the other one, not so much. One you went to this weekend, Seb, and one you didn't. But let's talk about St Pauli and that historic promotion. Amazing scenes there. The Milnator.
Yeah, it really was. I think, Jimbo, you don't often get the chance to be close to happiness in football. You don't get to see many sort of days where everybody's uninhibited in their joy. And this was one of those. Beautiful sunshine in Hamburg. Also, St Pauli went into that day because of the result the night before between Holstein, Kiel and Fortuna. They knew they only needed a point from their last 2 games. They're playing Osnabrück, who, despite bizarrely having Michael Cuisance on loan, are bottom of the table and already relegated. And by, I suppose, midway through the second half, they were 3 up. The sun was shining. Bits of confetti that had fallen from the stands were kind of glittering on the pitch. It was sort of as close to a kind of a footballing heaven as you could get to. And it just turned into this celebration. And something that had never happened to me before. I was sitting next to a St Pauli employee in the press box. And I turned around probably after about an hour, 3-0 up, and she was just quietly crying. And it was really lovely. She kind of just hugged me. And I didn't know her, but she was just sort of overcome by, I suppose, the achievement, but also what it meant to the people in the stands. And St Pauli, because of the way they're run and because they're a fan-run club and there are concessions made within the Milan Tour to make sure that people who couldn't necessarily afford football elsewhere are able to get in. So, for instance, one of the main grandstands, there you can buy a ticket for €10, and it's, a great view. It's a great place to watch football. You get a lot of young people there, get a lot of families, get a lot of people from minority communities because they feel welcome at the club. And as a whole, when paired with footballing success and what the day meant, it was kind of overwhelming. It was really, really lovely, and especially sweet for them because they came very close in 2022 to winning promotion. They fell away, and in the aftermath, Timo Schultz, who had done a great job as coach, but was also a former player and something close to being a local icon, really, lost his job. In comes Fabian Hürzeler, who was 29 at the time. And I first met him about 6 weeks later when he still hadn't completed his qualifications. He was still studying for his A license, and he'd had a couple of wins. But the results ever since have been absolutely remarkable. 2 huge, long, unbeaten sequences. So this season, they didn't lose a game in any competition until February, 7 months into the Zweite Bundesliga season. And yeah, he's one of the great sort of coming forces in German football, I think. If he manages to keep them up, I think a very, very big job awaits him in the future. But just one of those where, yeah, you write your article and you load your Instagram account, all that kind of stuff, but you also think, I'll remember doing this game in 20 years' time. Wow. It was lovely.
That's magnificent. How rough a season do you think they're going to have up in the Bundesliga 1?
I'm cautiously optimistic. Us the Bundesliga, Jimbo. Us the Bundesliga. I'm cautiously optimistic. If you look at the teams who have come up, who have struggled, it's typically been because, first of all, they don't have solid foundations, either when they have the ball or defensively. They've kind of suffered in transition, or they just haven't had the quality in the right positions to hurt teams. 2 things in St Pauli's favour. First of which is that this is not a strong Bundesliga at the moment. If you look at Heidenheim finishing mid-table, for instance, this season, Heidenheim, a great story, thoroughly deserved it, but also they were able to take advantage of a lot of dysfunctional sides beneath them. Teams like Wolfsburg, Union Berlin, who we'll get to, Cologne, teams with bigger budgets who just and better players, better known players at least, who just aren't performing as they should. St Pauli don't depend on individuals, really. There are some really good players there. Dapat Afolayan, former West Ham, former Chelsea, actually has a degree in structural engineering, Dapat Afolayan, a little bit of trivia. But their unit, their grouping, their coaching is, I think, what will kind of prove the difference next season. I think they'll probably finish about 13th or 14th. I think they'll be okay, just about. So, yeah, optimistic. And also, I think also when you're not operating from a situation where you find yourself at the top of the Zweite Bundesliga almost by happenstance, and it is a strange division. It does throw up odd situations. Darmstadt, for instance, last season, who really suffered in the Bundesliga this year. When you don't have much to do in the summer, when you just have to, add a few more goals here and maybe a kind of a little bit of depth in certain departments, I think that suits you when you don't have to rip up your existing chemistry, and that's certainly the position that St Pauli are in. So I fancy them.
Okay, very nice. What about Como, who sparked joyous scenes by the shores of the lake this weekend as they secured their promotion back to Serie A after how long, James?
21 years.
21 years. Now, they, as you pointed out before, are backed by the richest owners, not just in Serie A, but in, I think, pretty much anywhere apart from maybe, Newcastle?
Yeah, these two Indonesian brothers who very high up on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, particularly when you aggregate both their wealth, which has come from sort of inheriting their father's cigarette business and then diversifying it across finance, media, sport. So whilst they would push back against the suggestion that they bought their way back into Serie A, they have been able to sign players who, have in the past gone for 25 million, like Simone Verdi, for example. They've got Patrick Cutrone, who was at AC Milan, scored goals at San Siro, played for Italy, went to Wolves, played for Fiorentina, Valencia. I think, to be honest, as much as people have focused on the ownership and how they've brought in the likes of Thierry Henry as a shareholder, Cesc Fabregas as a shareholder and coach, Cutrone is the story that most moved me when I went there, because
he's from there as well, isn't he?
He's from there. He's still young. Yeah, he's like 26. And, we're about to go into a European Championship. And I think in every major tournament that Italy have at least qualified for since 2012, there's always been this discussion, where are the strikers? And there was a time when he burst on the scene, Micah Richards style, at AC Milan. And people thought, okay, this is a guy who can maybe do that. And he just got lost in the shuffle. And his father passed away. And he basically just wanted to go home, and Como offered him that opportunity. He said it was the only club he'd accept going into the second division for. There were clubs in the Europa League who were basically saying, do you want to be our guy up front? He said, no. And he scored one of the goals of the season, incredible volley. So in that sense, there is still a very personal element to Como. And also, again, as much as they've been able to sign guys who've regularly played in Serie A, Goldeniga, Baselli, they've got 4 guys in that team who have been with them in the 3rd division, in the 4th division, who have played regularly this season. And it's not often we see this with, let's say Chelsea, where new owners come in, blow a load of money, and instead of going forwards, they go backwards. I think Como, in fairness to them, have done pretty much everything right in terms of how they've retained that core, how they've added to it, and how they've engaged the community as well. It reminds me a little bit of like Leicester, when Leicester won the league under their Thai owners, when there was still a lot of enthusiasm and momentum with their Thai owners, where they would pay for away days, they would pay for rounds of drinks and that sort of thing. Within Como, there are all these initiatives where whenever they score, there are bars where the club buys a round of drinks for everyone in the bar. They've copied that Atalanta initiative where every newborn baby in Como gets a kit. Yeah. And all those little things that actually add up and mean a lot. Because it's very easy if you live in Como, you're probably the son of an Inter player or a daughter of an Inter player or a Milan player.
George Clooney.
Yeah. The easy thing to do is to support Inter or Milan.
Right.
And you could see, in the pitch invasion that followed, which Jamie Vardy was a part of.
Yeah, that was curious.
Yeah, Vardy.
Dennis Wise is friend. That's why.
Dennis Wise is friend because Dennis Wise was in the jungle. So Dennis Wise was kind of a football chief exec for a while at Como, then got kind of redirected to the Indonesians' other sort of soccer initiatives back home, and then he showed up again for this promotion party. And there's Vardy, but he got to know Vardy when he was in the jungle at the same time that Rebecca Vardy was in. So anyway, Vardy was part of the promotion celebrations and kind of got vox popped by one of Di Marzio's intrepid reporters saying, "Are you signing here?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm an old man. I don't know."
Magnificent scenes. That volley, by the way, I presume it's the one against
Venezia, yeah. Who they beat to automatic
90th
promotion.
minute.
Left foot as well.
Yeah. Nice. Anyway, the Venezia in the mix for the promotion playoffs. Certainly, the promotion race in Serie B is fire. Parma already up.
Yeah.
And now Como with them. And then when you look at the names that could be fighting their way through the 6-team playoff structure, you've got, Venezia in there, you've got Cremonese, Brescia, Palermo, Sampdoria as well with Pirlo.
They've had a very good second half of the season.
Yeah.
They did their own lovely tribute to Sven-Goran Eriksson.
Oh, yeah.
Last week there, where they brought back
Mancini as well. Mancini was there, yeah.
Jimbo.
But no, it was touching when Sven. It was almost like Sven didn't know Mancho was going to be there, and then he turns around and he goes, "Oh, you."
Yeah, it's very good.
Lovely scene because I think he's been hugely popular with pretty much every team, but there really felt like a special place for him, Sam. Excellent. All right. Well, but Como, are they going to make a big dent in Serie A next year? Do you think?
I think so. I mean, they if you look at the recent trend in Serie A, teams that have promoted that have done well tend to be backed to the hilt. So you had Berlusconi's retirement project, Monza, for example, who have a higher wage bill than Bologna, who've just qualified for Champions League. Como's wage bill, as much as they say, it's not like Parma's, because Parma's was very high a couple of years ago when they came down. It will be high, and they'll be able to spend. I think they'll be one of the stories of the summer transfer window.
Ooh, nice.
So I'd back them to stay up.
Okay, good stuff. All right, next up, what do we fancy? Bit more on the Bundesliga relegation race or the extraordinary Bologna and Atalanta? Where are we going? What do you think?
Some Bundesliga?
Bundesliga?
La Bundesliga?
Let's go to the Bundesliga. All right. Excellent. Seb. St Pauli coming up. Who's going down? Well, raw drama this weekend.
Raw drama?
Actually, mostly it wasn't, I don't think. No. My geography is a bit wobbly, but
Poland.
Darmstadt are down. Then the next three, Union Berlin, Mainz and Köln, had key games. So we heard that Mainz beat Dortmund, which really put the cat among the pigeons, because they then leapfrog Union Berlin, dropping the Berliners down into the relegation playoff spot. But it meant that the game between Köln and Union Berlin was now for Köln absolutely must win. If they didn't win that game, they were going to be automatically relegated. They probably go 2-0 down, and they finally, this is by the way one of the lowest, if not the lowest scoring team in the Bundesliga, win it 3-2 in the 92nd minute. Scenes, Seb.
Scenes indeed, Jimbo. There are some 3-2 comebacks where you can kind of sense it, right? You feel an energy in the stadium and you feel sort of pressure building. Not one of those, because Cologne, they're kind of harmless as an attacking side. They throw crosses into the box, and this is very much what they did on Saturday. They kind of just played a little bit of football, didn't really hurt Union Berlin. Union looked very, very comfortable, 2-0 up, and it was sort of the moment at which their season had been rescued. And then strange stuff happened. Stefan Tigges sort of got hit by the ball and then went in, wrong-footing the goalkeeper. And then in the 92nd minute, Damien Downs finds themselves in the right place, taps home. One of my favourite sort of footballing broadcasting tropes, where the sound is so loud that the audio peaks on the recording, and it just can't contain it. And it was one of those. Still a little bit tricky because of their goal difference. I think Cologne is still likely to go down automatically. They will have to play Heidenheim away at the weekend.
They're at Heidenheim. Union, who were the last team to come up through the relegation playoff from from the second division, and could be the first team to go back down from the top division.
From Serie B to the Bundesliga.
All right. Union host Freiburg. In what will be Christian Streich last game.
Very, very emotional. So obviously Freiburg had their last home game under Christian Streich at the weekend, and he's one of the great men of European football. Forget Germany. He's just a really lovely human being. And I don't expect that, given the players that have worked with him for so long, for that to be a kind of on-the-beach performance. And as you mentioned, Union Berlin, the last team to come up via the playoffs in 2019 when they beat Stuttgart. And a bit of unwelcome symmetry potentially for them because in the Zweite Bundesliga, Fortuna Düsseldorf look absolutely excellent. They've been brilliant since the Winterpause. Norwich fans will be interested to know that Christos Solis, the Greek winger, for my money, probably the best player in the division over the last 2 or 3 months. And they are, unlike in previous years where the 16th place Bundesliga side has played a kind of either an absolutely knackered Holstein Kiel or a snake-bitten HSV team who just can't get out of their own way. This is a dangerous, dangerous opponent. If you're at Union Berlin with what I suspect is still quite a lot of squad fractures, a lot of kind of wounds from what was a pretty disastrous transfer policy over the last summer. Nenad Bjelica, the coach, he was let go a few weeks ago. Disastrous 6 months in charge, taking over from Urs Fischer. Union Berlin is chaos, and you do not want to play a team as performing quite like Düsseldorf when you're in that situation. And I think there are all sorts of questions about, like, in the kind of the abstract sense, about what happens when you're a high-performing team and when your success is driven by a group of overperformers, and when, as a result of that success, you bring in players who have previously enjoyed it elsewhere. And Leonardo Bonucci is kind of the unfortunate symbol of that, but Kevin Volland too. And there's a real chasm between old Union and this season's Union in the playing staff, and it has cost them very, very dearly. It might get worse as well, Jimbo. I would not back Union in that playoff.
Crikey. Well, they currently lie 16th, which is the playoff position. Köln 3 points behind them, bidding to get out of the automatic relegation spots. And Mainz 2 points above Union. So it all comes down to next Saturday. It's going to be dramatic. Crikey. So we'll check up with you next week on what happens there when we also preview that kind of tasty-looking Bayer Leverkusen Atalanta Europa League final. But today, let's finish off
with the Bundesliga A.
With the Bundesliga A, or as they call it in Italy, Ligue A.
Liga A.
All right, bonjour Italy. Bologna are into the Champions League for the first time in 60 years. You mentioned this way back at the start, James, but a 2-0 victory over a typically hapless Napoli. Unusual goal scorers for Bologna, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's been one of the themes of the season, is that, for example, Lewis Ferguson's been out injured, had surgery on his knee.
Picked up a big award this week, though, the Giacomo Bulgarelli Award.
Yeah, in front of the Curva Bulgarelli. I wouldn't say they haven't missed him, but again, Thiago Motta's been able to find a way to keep the team competitive without him. There have been times where they haven't had Zirkzee, for example, and that hasn't mattered. He's been able to sort of, rotate and use players who, just when you think you have a handle on what their best starting 11 is, he does something with it. He tweaks it, be it because of the opponent that's coming up or because he's got an injury and a suspension. So there are lots of... I think that's one of the things everyone feels involved at Bologna, and that's why it's just a real good vibes story. But yeah, James, I mean, wage bill-wise, this is a team that is second half of the table, and yet their record away in the big games, I mean, you could say that everyone's beating Napoli this season. Napoli with the worst ever title defence, and it shouldn't be since 49-50 Torino, because 49-50 Torino was the team that had to essentially was cobbled together after the Superga air tragedy.
Right.
So Napoli own that statistic, but to win away there, moved them into third place where they overtook Juventus.
And who do they play next weekend?
They play Bologna, and Juventus want to become more like Bologna. Either taking Thiago Motta, either taking Calafiori, who's probably been the biggest tactical story as an individual this season in terms of a centre-back going into midfield when they've got the ball. But yeah, Juventus, 15 points in 15 games. which, I like Max a lot. I think he gets a lot of unfair criticism. But the way this second half, it's not really the second half of the season, it's ever since they drew at Empoli going into the title decider, the way the team has fallen away. And I think Seb mentioned it in relation to Dortmund, how once that 5th Champions League spot was secured, I think there's a couple of dynamics at Juventus where they lose to Inter, they're not going to win the league. Inter just run away with it. So it's like, okay, well, what's our season really for now? And they already seemed really safe with Champions League. And then when it seemed to get an emergency situation, a 5th Champions League slot comes up. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So essentially, we're not in Europe. All we're really playing for is this week's Coppa Italia final on Wednesday, and that's it. But I think that even doesn't really explain the way the team has fallen away.
Took a 91st minute Rabiot goal to get them an equaliser against, or to get them a point against Salernitana.
Salernitana was so bad.
And Salernitana could have won it at the end. And I think the squad will not have been indifferent to the rumours that have been going around for the last few months that Thiago Motta is the chosen one.
Right.
But even so, a little bit of dignity. I mean, you've got two extremes at Juventus this season. A team that overperformed but was in the title race up until mid-January, February. The only team that was challenging Inter. And a team that's been in relegation form since then. It's extraordinary.
All right. Well, they play Bologna next weekend. We should mention that that Bulgarelli award, named after the great Giacomo Bulgarelli, is for the best midfielder in Serie A. So for Luis Ferguson, a mighty accolade. That Juve's opponents in the Wednesday night Coppa Italia final, the prelude to which will be Albano singing the Italian national anthem. So that's going to be quite the moment. But also the getting of the 6th Champions League place. If Atalanta get into the top 4, and but also win
the Europa League,
they have to win the Europa League. Yeah, so they want to win a bit, but not too much. Okay, they still have a game in hand as well. They got the clash with Fiorentina.
But this was the subtext, the side plot, I suppose, to the Atalanta-Roma game.
Oh, yeah.
Which was Roma go out of Europe and then they lose to Atalanta, and now they've become like Atalanta supporters in that they need them to kind of win the Europa League to open up that, 6th Champions League spot, which you were saying?
Absolutely. As long as Atalanta don't then overtake Juventus.
Yeah.
Because then, for some reason...
As long as Roma don't keep losing and Lazio overtake them as well.
That's also
Lazio,
true.
Tudor has been great.
Tudor has the best record in Serie A since he took over.
Good Lord.
Of Lazio, yeah.
2 points. No, 1 point behind. 1 point behind. All right. And all very fascinating. 2 rounds to go, essentially, in Serie A. Milan had their one of the best wins of the season this weekend. 5-1 against Cagliari.
In silence, though.
In silence, James.
Yeah.
Milan is not satisfied.
Yes.
Well, the ultras are not.
Well, no, the banner just said Milano non si accontenta.
Doesn't settle.
We don't settle for this.
Yeah.
5-1 and a second place in the league.
Si è girato Giroud, which is, he turned and scored that goal against Inter, which in the collective memory decided the title race when Milan won the league. But now he's turning his back on them to go to MLS.
Yeah.
That turn, he did it with Arsenal against Liverpool as well. Same first touch, same turn, same finish. The other side.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, best of luck to him. He's been brilliant for Milan.
He's to win the league in his first season, to be the part of the first Milan team to win the league since 2011, and to do it on the final day as well, at the expense of Inter. Inter have since had their revenge, of course, but they have to replace him in the summer. Either with a Xerxes or a Sesko, something like that. So, Milan will have to show that they're not settling by signing a striker that the fans think, that's it, da Milan, that striker. He's Milan worthy. So.
Just what do you think the fans are most upset about? I mean, Pioli's had his wobbles, but the record overall has been pretty good. A title, second place this season, gone deep in European competition.
Champions League semi-final. I suppose, the narrative around that at the time was, the draw's been kind of easy though, because they got Champions League group stage as champions, so first seed. They were playing kind of your Salzburgs, your Zagrebs.
Is it the fact that they just always lose the derby? Is that the problem?
Lost it 6 times in a row, which has never happened before. To lose one 5-1, which is the heaviest defeat in half a century. To finish second, yes, but to have never been in the title race, because Juventus were the only team that challenged Inter.
And it felt that losing to Roma in the Europa League was also a bit of a turning point. After that,
to go out Champions League semi-final and a Europa League quarter-final to Italian teams, I think, from a Milan fan is like, okay, that's not great.
This is our house.
And then the other thing, James, which I think is used against him, is De Ketelaere having a fantastic season with Atalanta. Brahim,
he was good for them at times.
Ultimately, that was out of Pioli's control, and he liked Brahim, but Brahim is going to be in a Champions League final. And I think he could have. I also think there's a bit of fatigue. There is a sense that he's been in the job. Only Gasperini's been longer in a job in Italy,
and he was only meant to be there for a few months anyway.
Yes, yeah. And I suppose the other thing is that the Cordova is currently on strike. They think, as we've mentioned, that the club is settling. They're only interested in qualifying for the Champions League and building a new stadium. All the things that are kind of thrown at American owners, and Milan avoided this kind of protest. When Pioli was early in the job and they were looking at signing Ranić to replace him, because it was COVID and the stadiums were shut, and so there weren't these kind of sort of protests, and I think Milan's success in some respects has been their own worst enemy, because when Elliott were the owners of the club, they were taking over a club that was practically insolvent and could have gone to the bottom of the football pyramid, and they won the league, which was unexpected. And when you win the league, it's a little bit like when Liverpool won it under Klopp. All of a sudden, the aura of the club is switched back on again, like Christmas lights, and they kind of forget They've made the extraordinary look ordinary.
Or maybe they made the ordinary look extraordinary.
Yeah, there you go, James. Anyway, so Milan now, I think some of the fans think we should be, if we're not winning in the league, then we should be doing what we've always done, which is be competitive in the Champions League. And that's really, really hard to do in the current economic landscape.
Very much so. All right. Well, we'll talk more about such things when we chat with you and Seb next week ahead of that Europa League final. That's kind of the end of the regular Euro shows for this season, though. We'll be speaking to you all in the course of not just these final weeks of the campaign, but also the big shindig in Germany this summer. For now, though, it's many thanks to Alvaro Romeo.
It's been a pleasure.
Seb Stafford-Bloor, Julien Laurens, James Horncastle, Rachel and producer Charlie in the booth. And hey, you listener. We'll be back on Thursday, in which we'll be discussing loads of stuff, not least what Man City and Spurs do, and the Coppa Italia final, of course. But for now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.